he got into public office. For more than 20 years, we've known him as one of the leaders in public power. And now the entire city, and indeed,
Well, I was hoping you guys would be standing up sooner or later. It feels a little tame in some ways, and it's a little intimidating only because that when we started this nearly 4 years ago, when I kicked off my campaign for supervisor, we kicked it off in a cool little restaurant at the Visadero called Club Wazima, this Ethiopian restaurant. And when we had 50 people in there to kick this whole thing off, it felt very crowded. And now, with really just a few weeks planning, and I really want to thank the co-hosts, and I want to read who the co-hosts are. It is Board President Aaron Peskin, Alexis Wong, Angela Quandra, Mayor Art Agnos, Bijan Sartipi, Felix Levy, Assembly Member Fiona Ma, Jeff Mariama, Public Defender Jeff Adachi, Khalid Dejani, Commissioner London Green, Mark Sanchez, Mayor Ron Islami, Melissa Nurki, Michael Johnson, Sheriff Mike Hennessy, thank you, Sheriff, for being here, Commissioner Minpak, Mazas Dejani, Sandy Moore, Commissioner Steve Nakajo, the House of Labor, who I know is well represented here, Tim Paulson, Mayor Willie Brown, and many, many more. In a very short order period of time, these people assembled together and helped really catalyze this event. And when we kicked off our campaign 4 years ago for supervisor, there were no elected officials at that particular time. And now that I feel like that we have aspired and have ascended, and I think our track record helps sort of underscore our commitment to District 5 and to the city and county of San Francisco, I'm absolutely proud to be before you once again to celebrate, I think, another round as being a member of the Board of Supervisors. And I must tell you, the reason I am here, and I know that with the generous introductions and a little bit of the roast from some of my friends, but in all seriously, they're right on the mark. But with this exception, the reason I'm here is that this isn't work. I am literally madly in love with San Francisco. And I feel that there is much more work that we have to do, and that I am certainly motivated and fueled, I think, by the inspiration that I have garnered from so many of our fabulous neighborhoods, stretching from Hayes Valley all the way moving west to the Inner Sunset and everything in between, from Japantown and Lower Pack Heights to the Haight area. We have probably the most diverse district within its boundaries, and quite frankly, sorry, gang, probably one of the hippest districts. And in return from that inspiration that I have really, I think, gleaned and absorbed by so many of you, that makes me, yes, that bit of a workaholic, and yes, maybe I'm a little too cerebral, and yes, I could probably lighten up a little bit and smile and dance, and sort of live in, I think, that particular, way of being. It's not work at all. We pound out the legislation and we pound out the advocacy because of our great attachment to this district and to this city, because it's not the fact that it's partisanship, but it's because our ideas are better, that we work hard to make sure that our ideals are solidified to the best of everybody's convenience. And so, when I unexpectedly made a little bit of a mark for myself in trying to shed light on an issue like crime and public safety, it wasn't certainly generated by the need to try to corner think, some area in the press and media, but the city has been undergoing a crisis for quite some time, especially in the crime wave. But especially because I feel like there has been this sort of resignation and surrender that in many pockets of San Francisco, but in particular the most disenfranchised communities, that we have sacrificed those communities to believe that high murder rates and that crime rates should be routine for those particular neighborhoods. And that's why I drew the line in the sand, suggesting very firmly that we must have the kind of measured and comprehensive response. And so that both the police department, law enforcement, and mayor must be held accountable as much as we in the board of supervisors and as much as the community to stand tall and stand tall together to do everything we possibly can to reclaim our neighborhoods from those threats of public safety. Because we know very well that if we don't, then that particular threat shall continue to radiate and migrate even to communities who are less experienced with this particular crisis. And I hate to say this, folks, that's exactly what has occurred in some ways in San Francisco. And I think it is absolutely shameful that we would surrender any part of San Francisco, rich or poor, to suggesting that that is a way of life normal to that particular That is indicative of the fact that we certainly have paid, I think, some attention, and excessively, I feel, that went on the unnecessary drama of having a showdown with the mayor on foot patrols after he vetoed our legislation. And by the way, it was the first veto override in his career. I certainly took part two in suggesting that this is something that should exist in its natural tension between the chief executive and the board of supervisors, but hopefully a departure from the institutional resistance on our ability to forward strategies that many other cities really talk and actually implement a very good game. But San Francisco, because of its very progressive reputation, which sometimes gets lulled into a false sense of its own reputation, does not commit to the kind of strategies that it should on public safety. Which is why I think it's high time in my next term, and I will not relax from this particular objective, that we pursue an actual, accountable, transparent plan of community policing for the entire city. And that indicative of this as well is all attached to economics. And attached to economics, it only underscores the city that I also feel is in crisis, because we probably are the most magical city in the United States. That's what I tell my friends after living here 24 years. And people in New York just ask, like, what are you talking about? But I stand firm on that, and then they want to beat me up. And yet, I understand sort of the distillation of our own challenges when we see oil, topping $120 billion, a world record per barrel. And when we see us, on the cusp, if you want to call it formal or informal, on a recession, and yet we live in the most expensive, or one of the most expensive cities in the world. And when we see our seniors, a growing population of an over age of 55 in San Francisco, and we see our youth, a growing population of youth who are unemployed and who are not certainly able to be rerouted in the most positive way with either jobs or some kind of enrichment programs, then that spells trouble for a city that we have to stand up and address in the most thorough way possible. And this isn't rhetoric, my friends. This is simply an idea that we in the Board of Supervisors, I really want to thank my colleagues, Supervisor Goldrick and Aaron Peskin, and the members of the Reentry Council, and even member of the mayor's staff who sort of woke up to this idea that really the bottom line is about jobs. And it's about the kind of jobs that we want to make sure that wherever the skill level is in the capacity, that it is our responsibility and obligation within the city government, especially when working with our fabulous network of union labor and with the private sector, to marshal together the kind of resources and infrastructure that puts our people to work. Not on a seasonal job, not something that is just sort of passed